Well, thank you for tuning in to our Facebook. This is me talking about my experience during World War II. I'm a Holocaust child survivor, and I'm going to speak about my own experience. This is something that I lived through during World War II, and I'm one of the lucky children, because children did not survive without help. So I'll start to begin, and hopefully at the end of my speech, you'll be able to ask me questions. So far, we still have a little bit problem with the show. Okay, gallery view. I think you have me. Okay. Let me turn off the telephone completely so nobody will make problems. Okay. I see some people who already turned on the Facebook, and I'll start from the beginning. My name is Ida Paluch Kersz. I was born in Poland, May 3rd, 1939. And my story begins, I was born a twin, let me mention that. My story begins from the time that I was 3.5 years old. That's when I started to remember. And when the German army invaded Poland, my father, being a good citizen of Poland, he volunteered to the Polish army, and my mother was left alone with us, the twins, and my older sister, Genia. And the next thing that I remember, we were taken to the ghetto, like every Jew in our town, herded in. And the first thing that the German Gestapo, that was a special police, was taking everybody and separated them, like making a selection. They put people in groups, elderly in one group, other people who were still, able to work. And then they came to the mothers and take away the children. And at that point, my mother, in desperation, knowing what was happening, she ran to the building across the street, and we followed her, me and my brother Adam and my sister Genia. She went to a building. There were stairs to the left, as I remember. And then she was looking for a place with a window. She went into a closet, which didn't have a window. So she went about 3 floors up. And just as we watched, my mother jumped from the window from the 3rd floor. Later, I saw my mother's body laying out on the ground. That started chaos in the ghetto. People were running in all kinds of direction. And lucky for us, my mother's sister, Ruzia, was there, and she snatched us away into hiding. I don't remember much about the hiding place, but I remember that one day I was walking with her by the barbed wires of the ghetto, and a man called her name, Rose, Rose, come here. Who was the man? He was a friend of her who used to bring produce to her store, which she had a vegetable store. And when the store was closed, he asked the neighbors, where is Rose? And they told him, all the Jews are in the ghetto. And he decided he will come to the ghetto and look for Rose. And as he came, just by luck, I was the only one walking with my aunt, excuse me. And he asked her, who is this little girl? And she told him, maybe I am now an orphan. My mother killed herself, and I'm an extra mouth to feed. And his name was Wilhelm May, and that was Christmas. And he decided that he's gonna take me with him. They waited until it was dark, and my aunt handed me over the barbed wires, and he took me on a train to another city called Częstochowa. And it was Christmas Eve when he knocked on the door. His wife opened the door and he told her, "Josephine, this is your Christmas gift." And Josephine, his wife, who was pregnant herself, she accepted me without hesitating. Well, that was a little problem because I needed an identity. So they baptized me and I had a new identity. I wasn't anymore Ida Paluch. I became Irena Mai. My Polish mother was 3 months pregnant, and in spite of it, she took me knowing the risk that, the whole family could be killed. My new parents were very, very loving to me. The problem also was that my mother couldn't let me out to play with other children because I spoke Yiddish, not Polish. So it took time until I learned to speak Polish and learn the prayers to pretend that I'm a Christian. And her excuse to her neighbors and people who called, asked her, "Who is this child?" suddenly. And she told them that I was out of wedlock and they were hiding them until they got married and brought me out. So that was the story. And to earn a living, my Polish father took a horse and a wagon and tried to go around villages around the city of Częstochowa where we lived. And business was kind of good for him. So he asked his 2 cousins to come with him. And one day when they were going by the village of Odusz, it was 1942 already, out of nowhere, Gestapo showed up and they shot all of them. Somebody betrayed them. I found out after the war that because they were working for the underground, and actually what they were hiding in the wagon underneath was some ammunition for the partisans. So my mother was a widow and pregnant. A few months later, she delivered a baby girl, which we named after father Wilhelmina. And times were really, really hard because there was shortage of everything during the war, food, clothing, and here she was with a baby and a Jewish child. She never gave up. She gave food to me and to Bilusha, my now sister. And when there was no food, we went to the garbage, through the garbage of our neighbor to pick up potato peels, whatever. And that could not go on. Here was a baby. And she decided to move in with her in-laws, my Polish father parents. The trouble was that my Polish father was the only son of Mr. Wilhelm Mai and Josephine, also the same names as my Polish mother and her husband. So when Grandpa, that's what I already called him, lost his son, he really lost his mind. He became an alcoholic. He drank from morning till night. He became crazy. He chased us around the house. He tried to beat us up. He threw furniture around. He broke everything. And in the middle of the night, we ran away in our nightgowns to stay away from this crazy man. And my mother decided that this cannot go on. And she took 2 suitcases, one for me, one for her. And we started to sell cigarettes and vodka on the trains. So during the war, we spent most of the time on the trains with all kinds of adventures and being witness to horrible things. Because at every train station, the Gestapo came with those ferocious German shepherds looking for Jews and people who didn't have any documents. And when they found somebody suspicious or found out that he is a Jew, they dragged them to the train, out to the train station, and they shot them right there in front of everybody to threaten people not to help Jews or other people who tried to run away. As we were on the trains, it was always, overcrowded, and there were terrible things said about Jewish people, so nobody will help us. It was told the Jews are like roaches, they're not human beings. And the worst thing was told that Jews catch Polish children, kill them, and use their blood for matzah. And I, being a little child, not knowing that I'm Jewish, I believe in that. And I was afraid of the Jews. I hated Jews. I didn't know any better, because I went with my mother for the Polish holidays. I went to church, and that was my mind made up. Well, toward the end of the war, people who saved their radios in the basements, they found out all kind of, news that the Germans are really losing the war, and the Russian army is coming toward the border of Poland, where we became quite happy. People were talking about it, whispering about it. And one day, the Germans ran away from our town, dragging with them everything they could on the motorcycle, on their trucks. And one day was very quiet after that. And here in the morning, we hear music and big tanks coming into the town. And those are the Russians who came to liberate us. People were throwing flowers and hanging on them, kissing them. We were so happy that finally, this is liberation. But they didn't stay too long, and we were still poor and hungry. They were going toward Germany to help the Allies, to take, participate in the war. The Allies, the French, the English, the British, and the American who came to help. And as the American who came and the French toward Europe, and they discovered those horrible places, the death camps, and they opened the gates and went inside. What they saw, it's unbelievable that some human beings can do those horrible things to other human beings. They saw the crematoria, they saw the stacks of skeletons of people, of clothing, of shoes, of glasses, and the people were so happy that finally they can go home, they can, be liberated. But as they started to go home, it was a very hard time. There was not always a train. They were all, demolished during the war. And as they came to their homes, somebody else lived in their home. They were not happy to see them coming back. They chased them away. They threatened their lives. And again, they were homeless. I remember that in our city, people who came, Jewish people who came back, they organized themselves in a social helping organization. And when my mother found about it, she came to them and declared that during the war, she helped, to hide a Jewish child. And the only thing she wanted is an apartment, because she explained the situation, how it was living with grandpa. And when they found out that I am Jewish, they told her they will give her an apartment under the condition that Ida, at that time my name was Irena, will learn about her roots. And they asked her to bring me to a Jewish temple in the evening. And they really, first of all, I have to mention, they did give her the apartment. And one evening, my mother brought me to a Jewish temple where there were prayers. And when I saw those Jewish people dressed, with shawls and dark clothes and praying in a different way than in a church, I got very scared. I couldn't understand the language. Of course, it was Hebrew prayer. I started to kind of suspect that those are the Jews. And why my mother left me here alone, they probably gonna kill me and use my blood for matzah. That's what I was thinking. I couldn't think anything else, just how am I gonna run out of here? get out of here. And toward the evening, when the prayers were over, there was one lady who wanted to do a mitzvah because she became pregnant. And not many women after the war got pregnant because of the new nutrition that wasn't good. And she wanted to do the mitzvah. She ordered a horse and a wagon. And when we were on the street, I started to scream, people, help me. The Jews are, taking me, and they're gonna kill me and use my blood for matzah. Well, people surrounded the carriage, police showed up, and they asked her, can you show us that this child belongs with you? And she was holding on, to me with her hands, but when she had to open her purse, she let my hand go. I jumped out of the carriage, and this time I ran to grandfather. Why? Because I thought my mother didn't want me anymore. So I went to grandpa. And as I stayed with grandpa for main time, things were happening. A lot of Jewish people were finding family. And as it happened, 3 of my aunts survived. I have to say that my mother was from a very large family. There were 13 children, 8 girls and 5 boys, and only 3 of my aunts survived. And as they were sitting by a dinner table, they heard the rumors about the Jewish child in Częstochowa almost caused a pogrom. Pogrom is, when they found the anti-Semite Jewish people, they killed them, which happened a lot after the war. And one of my aunts said, wouldn't that be something? It was our own Ida, one of the twins. Why did they think so? Because my Aunt Rose, before she died, she sent messages to anybody she could that after the war, if somebody survived, they should look for me because I was given to Częstochowa to a Christian family. And that was it. Nobody knew the name or anything. And my aunt decided they're gonna go to Częstochowa and look for me. So where do they go? They came to that Jewish organization and told them, we wanna see Ida because we suspect she might be our niece. And they said, okay, we'll take you to, to the place where she lives, but of course you cannot go inside because grandpa is a crazy man. We can only arrange that Ida will, come out and play in front of the house. And that's what it was arranged. I came out of the house, my aunt stood across the street, and the minute they saw me, they recognized me because at age 6, I looked like my older sister, Genia, when she was 6. So they knew that this is me, this is, their niece. They went home and started to think what we're gonna do about Ida. And in the meantime, my father, who came back from Russia, because when he was in the Polish army, they were by the border by Russia, and the Russian the German took everybody as prisoners, but when they were by the Russian border, the Russian took the prisoners into Russia, and my father survived in Russia. And after the war, the Russian let anybody who had Polish citizenship to come back to Poland. So he came to Poland, and of course he got in touch with my aunts, and they told him, Leon, my father's first name, you have to remember, that's part of my story. Leon, we think that one of the twins is alive, and that's the girl, she lives in Częstochowa, and you must go there and find out about it. So my father went to Częstochowa. Again, he went to the Jewish organization. He had a few pictures, and he said, I want to see the child because my family already saw her, and they think that this is Ida, my daughter. And one of the presidents of the organization took my father to grandpa's house, and when they knocked on the door, they told grandpa, this is probably Ida's father. When he came in, I looked at this stranger and I said, this is not my father. My father is buried in the cemetery. Couldn't have, have 2 fathers. and he spoke not a very good Polish, and he had dark hair, and a complete stranger. I did not accept him. And my father took out from his wallet a picture of a woman, and he asked me, "Do you recognize this lady?" And I said, "Yes, this is my mother." I did have still the face memorized of my mother. So my father said to Grandpa, "She's my daughter. You have to give her back to me." And Grandpa said, "You Jews are rich. You have gold. You have money. You know, I stick out my neck for her, and I deserve some reward." He never mentioned my mother, and he wouldn't give me away until he saw some money. So my father went all over Poland, tried to get some money from organization. He sold my grandfather's property, whatever. And when he came back, he didn't bring him, thousands of money. He just brought him maybe, $600, $500. And when Grandpa saw the money, right away he thought, "I'm going to buy a lot of vodka for that money." And he released me to my father, the stranger. My father brought a taxi and forcefully put me into the taxi. When I was screaming and crying, I was so in panic, I spit at my father, and I told him, "Too bad Hitler didn't finish all the Jews." That's the terrible thing I said to my father. He was crying, I was crying, and my father took me to my aunts just to show, first of all, to stay there. We have no place to stay. So when he took me to my aunts, he wanted to show that nobody is being killed. They brought some neighbors' children. And I really don't remember what happened after that. I just remember that in the morning, when I woke up, I touched my neck because I always had a chain with a cross, and it wasn't there. My father took it off. And I became really depressed and scared because I thought even God has forsaken me. I didn't want to eat. I didn't want to do anything. And my father didn't know what to do with me. And he got an advice that he should put me in an orphanage, in a Jewish orphanage. And that's what he did. He put me in an orphanage, and I stayed there. There were other children in that orphanage that were saved by Christian people who understood that the children belonged there. And I was there for a few months. And then after a few months, my father showed up and he says, "Well, I'm taking her home. I got married." And here he takes me to another city, Wroclaw, and he showed me this new woman, Sylvia, and she is also a Holocaust survivor from Auschwitz, and her mind is really not clear. She survived and lost her own children. She was terrible to me. She told me many times, "How come you survived and my children died?" Life was very hard. She used to hide food. She really didn't wish that I was there. And my father, to bring me back to Judaism or whatever, he sent me to a Jewish school. That was the only Jewish school called Shalom Alejchem, where there were Jewish children. And at first, I did not acknowledge that he's my father. I did not acknowledge that I'm Jewish. On the way to school, I stopped by the church. And after some time, I recognized, as I matured, that I am Jewish and this whole thing is true. Times went by, and in 1948, Israel became Israel. And the Polish government suddenly had a relationship with Israel. And after they always refused us visas to go to Israel, in 1957, we got a visa to leave Poland. And as we left Poland, there were other places that we had to stop. We went to Italy and we waited for a boat that would take us to Israel. And as one, after a few months, we did come to Haifa. I just could not believe how beautiful Haifa is. People were walking around with smiles and this beautiful background. And of course, my stepmother didn't want me to stay with them. So my father put me together with his brother, who had 2 children, lovely children. And I stayed with them. As I didn't know Hebrew, I signed up for Hebrew lessons or stay in a kibbutz. The kibbutz was special for newcomers. That was named Kibbutz Geva. And I came to Geva, and everybody was very kind to me, especially when they found out that I was hidden by a Christian family. And of course, I didn't know Hebrew, but I had to work. So one day they took us to a field to help out, and I was not used to being in the sun. My nose was bleeding, and I told the supervisor, I'll sit in the shade, and she said yes. And I said, but after you finish and it's not going to be so hot, I'll start to work. And at the end of this work, I told him, I'm ready to work. And he said, my kid, you don't have to work. We'll put you next day in a different place. And that's what happened. Since then, I work in different places, like in the laundry room. I work as a babysitter with the children. And I became really in love with kibbutz. I was there for about 6 months, but I could not stay. I was not a member. And in city of Netanya, I discovered that I have a cousin, my mother's first cousin, Guta, with a son. So I came to Netanya, but I could not find any work. This place was a place for tourists. And my cousin Guta told me that we have another cousin in Tel Aviv. Maybe I should go to Tel Aviv and look for some kind of employment. Well, I came to Tel Aviv and stayed with my other cousin Yaja and looked for work. But every time I went for work, I was refused because I didn't know much. I had no profession. And every time I went to a store, I tried to be a sales lady. They mistaken me for somebody who came to buy shoes. I got really desperate, and I was told that there are agencies that give work. So I went to an agency, and I met a girl from Teiman. And she took me on a side and told me, you know what? I was just told that there is a job at a seamstress, and I'll tell you where she lives. And if you just go there and don't tell anybody, you don't have to pay for the, instructions or for the fee of the agency. And that's what happened. I went to the lady, and she accepted me. And she accepted me also because, she felt sorry for me. And I started to work there, but my fee was so little that the food that I bought was really bad, because all I have enough money is for buy a sweet roll with coffee. And for dinner, I had the same thing. And I had to look for another job. I had no place to really live, just with Yaja, and I couldn't stay with Yaja all the time. And one day I took a bus, and somebody told me that there is, places for women to find place to stay. And as I was on the bus, and I asked the driver, is there a place? I heard something like YMCA. Would you take me there? And suddenly there was another man, and he said, if you're looking for a place like that, I'll tell you where it is, because it's only for women, and there is another one for men. And he took me to that place, and really there was a nice place where I stayed. And again, I looked for work, and my other job was with a man who did like artistic work. He was collecting all kind of stuff from the street, like lamps, and then he took out from the lamp all the wires, and then he put all kind of scenery. And I worked with it for a while, and then his wife came back from vacation. When she saw me, they chased me out of that job. Well, eventually I ended up back in Netanya, and I stayed with my cousin Guta, and for a while I had a camera, and I went to a photo studio where I met my future husband. And after a while, he asked me to marry him, and I did marry him. He had a son from previous marriage, and also a brother who took care of his son. And I got very friendly with the family. They really accepted me. A few months later, I got pregnant, which I made. It was very, I was very happy that here I'm going to have something of my own. And in 1959, I gave birth to a girl, which I named Esther after my natural mother. And that was something like sent from heaven. That was the center of my world, my daughter Esther. My husband worked with his brother in a photo studio for many years, but eventually people got new cameras where they could do their own photos. And the studio could not keep two families together, for one salary. And we were looking into other business, but we couldn't find. And one day my husband's cousin came and told us that he's going to go to the American embassy and apply for a visa to come, or come like steady. And I told him, why don't you bring us also the application? And surprise, surprise, a year later we got a call from the American embassy to come, and even for immigration. So we filled up our papers, and with my daughter, my husband, in 1963, we came to Chicago. And that starts another part of my life. I come to Chicago and completely not prepared. I do not speak English. And one of my aunts is already there. And she tried to help, but not too long. And we rented an apartment, not in the best neighborhood. And I wanted to, find a job with my bad English, but I went to the night school, like the library, and I studied English. But the problem was that there was no babysitter. And I went to the Jewish agency to ask if they can help me to keep my daughter in some school, in some kindergarten or something. She was already 3 years old. It was very difficult and took time. And once I walked with the buggy and my daughter on the street, on Howard Street, and in the window of a store, I saw a lady with little children there inside. And I knocked on the door, and I asked this lady in a broken English if I can, put my child there, and when I get a job, I'll pay her. And this wonderful woman, her name was Mrs. Davis, she took in my daughter, and I went for a work in a place, in a factory where they make microphones, electronic. After a while, I, learned a little more English, but I have to mention that the day when I left my daughter with Mrs. Davis and came to pick up Esther from Mrs. Davis completely bought her all new shoes, a new dress, everything new. She kind of, felt that, this is spring and we had all winter clothes. She also introduced me to another Holocaust survivor who was from England. That was Mrs. Right now, forgot the name. Sirlin, yeah, that was Mishpachat family Sirlin. They had a little girl that Esther met in the kindergarten, and they were our neighbors actually across the street. And they were the one who showed us American life, how to go to a hamburger place. And then when my daughter got to be in kindergarten, they both went to Hillel Torah Hebrew school. And they became like sisters. I was very happy because her mother and I were Holocaust survivors. We had a lot in common, and the husbands had a lot in common. And the girls, until today, they are like sisters, very close. Then I moved to Skokie, and there I found the Holocaust Museum. It was across from my house. And I was wondering what's in it. I saw in front of the building a crowd of people making like a blessing with a rabbi. So one day I knock on the door and nobody answers. So that didn't stop me. I came another day, knock on the door, and 3 ladies came down and said, "Who are you?" And I said, "Well, I'm Ida Kersz," and they asked me, "You have an accent." I said, "Yeah." They said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Poland." They said, "How did you survive?" And I told them that a Christian family saved my life. And those ladies embraced me and cried with me, and they said, "We're building here a Holocaust museum and we need any help we can get. If you can come and volunteer, we'll be very happy." And that was the beginning of me volunteering in the beginning of the 80s. Everything wasn't like it is today. It was very difficult. We didn't have much help. Everything was handmade. The postage was leaking with our tongue. And we have to clean the place, and suddenly we decided that we're going to speak. Somebody started to speak. It was Fritzi, and when I heard her speaking about her experience, I started to speak too. Another thing that happened in 1992, there was supposedly be a conference of hidden children in New York in Marriott Hotel. That's what I found out. And since I was always looking for my brother, my sister, because I never have forgotten that's what I had, that I had my sister and my brother, I went to New York, and there showed up, they were expected maybe 200 people show up. There were over 400, maybe more. And everybody put posts on the posters, all kind of pictures, notes. If you know my family, where they are, please let me know. And I was very lucky because I had this picture, which I'm gonna share with you, that I found here in Chicago, because my mother sent this picture to her aunt who lived in Chicago. She probably came to Chicago before World War II. And my mother sent her the picture, probably hoping that she sent her papers to come to United States, but it was too late. In this picture, we are probably 1.5 or 2 years old. In this picture, this is my brother Adam, this is me, this is my natural mom, this is my older sister Genya, this is my Aunt Rose who gave me away to the Christian family, and that's her son. And every time I look at the picture, I say, wow, I'm the only one who survived. And I put the picture in the hotel, hoping that somebody will recognize. Some people did recognize other people. They were kind of lucky. I wasn't. But the only thing that happened, I heard people speaking Polish. So I joined the group and I said, tell me what's happening in Poland. And they say that lately, after 50 years, some of them discovered that there are Jews because their Polish parents tell them before they die, you know, you're not my child. Somebody brought you to me. Somebody found you on the street. And this is a big shock because they always thought that there are Jews. Well, when I heard that, I said to myself, I have to go to Poland and find about my siblings. And I decided, and at that time I worked for a CPA firm that was before April, so I had to wait till April when it was closing and, you know, income tax time. And I decided I'm going to go to Poland. But before I went to Poland, I got this article, and it says here, this is from Connecticut. It says Jewish living, and that says also Polish children of Poland, children of Holocaust, still searching, if you can see it, still searching. And there was this picture here of this bearded man. Here you see it. And when I saw his picture, I right away thought he looks like our grandfather, if I can put them together. Here's him, and here is the grandfather picture. And besides that, he said that he does not remember anything. The only thing he knows that when he was in the orphanage, he had a tag on his bracelet identifying here as Tam, or Tamchu, the finger, Paluch. And my name, my maiden name is Paluch. So when I saw the picture and the nickname or whatever, Paluch, I thought, this is strange. This could be my brother, my twin brother. I have to think about it a little more. And he was interviewed actually in Poland. And I said, I have to go to Poland to find out about it. But the lady who interviewed him in Poland, her name was Deborah Kazis. And I thought, before I go, I'm going to talk to her. I found she lived in Connecticut, and I asked her, can you tell me more about this? He now had the name Jerzy Dolewski, given by his foster parents. So I asked her, can you tell me more about this Jerzy Dolewski? And she said, Ida, he has very little memory, almost nothing. So I don't know what you're going to find out. I said, that's okay. Give me his phone number. And she did, in Poland. And I called Poland, and it was probably late at night already over there. And a young voice answers, and I said, may I please speak to your father? I think he may be my twin brother. He said, my father is not home, he's in Warsaw. So I told him, whenever he comes home, please tell him that I want to talk to him. I think he's maybe my brother. Well, in the morning, or actually it was dinner, I remember, I sit down to dinner and the telephone, you know, rings, and this time a man's voice in the telephone. Well, you left a message with my son. You told him that maybe you're my twin sister. How old are you? When were you born? I said, I was born May 3rd, 1939. He said, for sure you're not my sister. I was born 1942. I said, how do you know you were born 1942? He said, because my Christian birth certificate says so. So I said, really? So it's mine. And it's not a real certificate. They just made it up for me. Well, he thought for a while and he said, why don't you come to Poland? I'll help you look for your brother. And after a while, I was panicking, he's going to hang up. I said, can you send me a picture from your youngest age? Because I have a picture of us sitting on our mother's lap. Can you please send it to me? Do you remember anything? He said, no, I don't remember. Well, a few weeks later, he sent me an envelope with pictures. And then I just opened my eyes because in this picture, that he sent me his son's picture. This is his son, and this is our father. And if you look closely, his son looks so much like our father. And then he sent me a picture of his little son. Where do I have that? This is his little son. And here am I. And this is almost the same face. And then I asked him, do you remember anything? And he wrote in the letter, you said I told you I don't remember anything, but I remember one thing. I was always praying, God help mommy, God help daddy, and God help Mr. Leon. Well, I ran to the telephone and I told him, do you know who is Mr. Leon? He says, no. I said, you are always praying for our father. His name is Leon. And we started to cry. This is really something that we recognize those signs. And I promised that I'm going to come to Poland and visit him. So it took me some time before I, got, all together and come to Poland on April 28, 1995. And as Adam, now I told him his name and his date. As he found out about it, he called the Polish television from Gdynia to come to the airport to record as we meet together. I called the Jewish agency, the Israeli embassy, and they came also to the airport, to see how we meet together. And as I arrived to the airport, and Adam was there too, we have a recording of this meeting. And Sarah, if you're there, could you show everybody our meeting? Okay?
This week, the U.S. government gave special permission for Polish immigrant Adam Paluch, to live in this country. Now, his request was a very simple one, to live with the sister the horrors of war once made him forget he even had. Here's the incredible story of loss and redemption from our Chicago Bureau Chief, Jeff Flock.
Adam and Ida Paluch, twins, together here on their mother's lap in Poland in 1940, and not together again until now.
Nobody can tell me that the child does not remember. If you're not in shock like he was, you do remember.
Though she was only 3, Ida Paluch remembered it all. Being ripped from their parents, the Christian couple who adopted and saved her. Adam Paluch remembered nothing of his family or the concentration camp where he ended up. They both spent the next 50 years searching.
Every time I ask them, what is my name? What is my name? They never tell to me.
By 1995, Ida had all but given up finding her twin. Then a friend sent this newspaper article about other Holocaust survivors seeking their families. In it, this picture of a bearded man from Warsaw.
When I saw the article, I brought the picture to the wall to compare, and I saw this is exact match.
She saw a resemblance to this picture of her grandfather.
I was in shock, and I was thinking to myself, is that really possible that now, when I'm 55, I'm going to find my twin brother? Because I always felt that if I survive, he might have survived too. In the beginning, he called me like once in 2 weeks. Then we called each other every week. And we called each other every day. At the end, we called each other 3 and 5 times a day. We thought we were going to go crazy.
Long after, the two people who many were craving of a reunion like this lived it. Adam Paluch would normally have had to wait 10 years or more for the okay to live in this country. But the U.S. government, moved by this incredible reunion, has given special permission now for him to live and work here.
It's a miracle. We call it 2 miracles, one that we survived and the other that we found each other.
All my life, I feel like I'm missing something.
Me too. I celebrated the holidays by myself, my birthday by myself. Finally, when I found him, it's like I found a piece of me.
I'm Jeff Locke, CNN, in Skokie, Illinois.
Well, they won't be celebrating alone anymore. Ida and Adam Paluch join us now with more on their reunion story and their search for yet another sibling of theirs. They're in our Chicago Bureau this morning and in our Washington Bureau this morning. Genealogist John Colletta, who conducts lectures and workshops on just how to trace your roots. Good morning, all. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us this morning. Ida and Adam, let me ask you one question. When you were watching the tape we just showed of your reunion, what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
That finally it came through. Finally, you should never lose your hope.
Did you ever lose hope at any point?
Pardon me?
Did you ever lose hope at any point?
No, I didn't. I never imagined my brother dead, and I still hope that my sister is somewhere there.
Now, your sister, is she an older sister or younger sister?
She's an older sister. She's 10 years older than us, and I found out that she was taking care of us after my mother's death during our stay in ghetto before I was taken away.
And you found your brother. Someone brought to you a newspaper clipping. It's possible, perhaps, that somehow, some way, someone might bring your pictures from this broadcast this morning to your sister.
That's what I'm hoping. That's what I'm hoping. If I could only reach her. If you allow me, can I say something in Polish? Because if I find my brother in Poland, maybe she's still in Poland.
Please, go ahead.
Okay. Genia, my jesteśmy tutaj I bez ciebie to jest jeszcze nam brak ciebie. Gamby Ivrit, Genia I matnim C2 Arec, Anachnu Pobe, Nachnu Zrichim Otach. Genia, as du verstehst Yiddish und du verstehst, mir sehnen du mir warten auf dir.
Can you tell us what you said?
I say, Genia, if you somewhere there, we are here, and without you, we're not whole. We're waiting for you.
Adam, I would like to know, how did you come to know or come to feel that you had a twin sister who was someplace else? You were raised by another family, Catholic, I understand, in another country.
Yes, you know, I never was looking for a sister because I don't remember nothing from wartime. You know, I was looking for somebody who recognized me, who I am, for somebody who helped me during the war, and I was looking for mother for every my life. You know, I never give information to newspaper. I am looking for sister because I don't know about sister.
So what was it like the very first time you two talked on the telephone, and what did you talk about?
You know, the first talking with Ida was very difficult because she told me I am your twin sister, and I asked her about age, and she told me she is 3 years older than I was, you know, and this was very stranger for me, and I from beginning I didn't believe for that, and after where we talk, where we change opinion, I started to believe, and the most important was my son, my middle son, told me, Father, this is for sure your family because look for the pictures, what she compared, you know, own pictures from childhood and the picture who I received from Ida.
Yes, you can see them.
This was matching.
Yes, you can see that resemblance there. Now, John Colletta in Washington, you've probably heard this kind of story a number of times.
Well, this is a bit more extraordinary than most,
really?
I must say. A lot of people are doing genealogy and finding cousins or family relatives, but rarely is it as spectacular a story as this one. This is extraordinary.
Tell me, listen, since we have Ida and Adam standing by there, what kind of advice would you give them for their search right now for their other sister?
Well,
Okay, we meet at the airport, and, you know, like magnet, we run to each other, and the cameras are, you know, flicking around. People don't know what's happening, and Adam and I are finally together. On the same day, there was a wedding of my best girlfriend's son, and we were invited. So we started with, you know, celebrations, and then we went to Adam's home. We drove there, and the Polish television, they kind of smelled that this is a good story, so they followed us. And we came to his house, and that was May 3rd already, and we celebrated our birthday on May 3rd. And there were other things. There was also a hidden children gathering in the mountain place in Zakopane. Well, there was a lot of hidden children there, and some of them didn't want the camera to take care of, to take pictures of them. And some of them said that they don't want the picture because they are still afraid that if they're going to be seen, there, they might lose their jobs, because in Poland they are still not accepted as Jews. And some of them say, just yesterday I found out I'm a Jew. So this was a kind of not very pleasant surprise. Listen to how the hidden children live in Poland. Anyway, I thought that I'm going to stay only 2 weeks because that was my visa. And my brother said, after 53 years, you want to stay only 2 weeks? So I stayed for a month. And eventually, he decided that he's going to come with me to the United States because, so much time was wasted. And he came with me to the United States, Adam. First of all, he fell in love with the United States, and he decided to stay. He already had grown-up children. His marriage was not that good at that time. And my brother stayed with us for 2 years. He studied English. He was working any jobs like, newcomers in the building profession, fixing anything he could. He was very, very handyman. Most people in Poland, they don't call electrician, they fix it themselves. And that's what he did. And he really established himself. And we were very already recognized by people because of the Chicago Tribune. I don't know if you have it. We were interviewed already in Poland. So people recognize us, as the twins. See? So they recognized us, and almost every day there was some kind of station, ABC, NBC in front of my house, and neighbors were wondering why until, they find out. Well, since then, I and my brother started to speak, and with his broken English, he used to tell that my brother had a different experience than I had. Unfortunately, after I left the ghetto with my Polish parent, he was left alone with my aunt. And what happened, they were all taken to a death camp called Majdanek. And as I found out later, Adam's doctor told me that they were doing medical experiments on him. And Adam does not remember anything about it. He just told me that after the war, the Russian army came to Majdanek. It's very close to the border of Russia, and they liberated him. And they found him in a toilet somewhere. And they took him straight to a hospital where he said they kept him for a long time in the darkness because probably he had problem with his eyesight. And then they organized an orphanage in Majdanek or somewhere else. I don't know for sure. Adam doesn't know either. And anybody who wanted a child could come and pick up a child from the orphanage. And one couple who lost their child came, and they liked Adam. He was a cute blonde child, and they took him. And as they took him home, they took him to a doctor. They were Catholic. And the doctor said, "Do you know you have a Jewish child?" And they were surprised. And they almost denied, no, he couldn't be Jewish. But eventually, he was so nice and cute, they accepted that he's going to be with them. They always say that he gave them luck, because after that time, they had 6 children. And after they had 6 children, they lost interest in my brother. And that was very hard for him. And they used to send him to our other places, orphanages. And since my brother was very smart, they call him Ida Paluch, like a smart child. He went to different schools, but one of the schools was learn about Navy commercial. And his job was to travel on a boat, on a ship, from place to place, like communist places. He went almost to China, Venezuela, any places around the world. And he said every time he went somewhere, he was looking for family, for Jewish people. So every place he went, he looked for a temple or synagogue. And they all, thought him, we don't know anybody like that. And one day he stopped in a country, I don't remember which one he told me, and there was an Israeli ship, and they told him, why don't you jump, the ship and come with us to Israel? And he said, I couldn't because I already had the son. So that was one hurdle that he ended up, just visiting Israel with me. That's what we did after Adam came to United States. 3 months after he came to United States, I got a phone call from BBC and in England, and they told me that a woman is looking for family. She's gonna have a birthday party, and the children who called, they wanna find out any family for the mother, because she only knows her family on the mother's side, but not on the father's side. And they found my name in the United States Holocaust Museum where I signed up. They got in touch with me. Actually, one of the producers came and she interviewed me. And as it happens, I had a picture of father of this woman, Denise. And when we look at that picture and my father, they look like brothers, really like close brothers. And we were invited, me and Adam, to go to England. They had a show called Dreams Come True. So that was still, Adam's visa was, good enough to go to United States and come back. And at the airport, I asked one of those immigration personnel, could you, expand the visa? And they did expand for another year. So Adam stayed, and I also approached the Jewish agency, the JUF, to help me, for my brother to work legally. And the government, hearing about our story, about our experience, they gave Adam a working permit, like Social Security, and he became, working legally person. And he waited for his citizenship about 20 years to get his citizenship. So Adam lives now in Vandeline. His children in the beginning did not accept us, but now they are. He and I went to Poland to visit, and his grandchildren are very, very smart, very good looking. Sometimes they come to visit here in the United States. He's very proud of them. I wish he would be here with me in front of this Zoom, but unfortunately, whatever was done to my brother, he is a very sick person. He suffered a lot. Every day when he calls me, I ask him, how are you? And he said, not too good. He can hardly walk. His vision is not good, and very, very bad diabetes. And this is very sad because we can right now spend much time together, especially with the coronavirus. But I just hope, and he hopes, that we'll, live through this bad time and maybe he'll feel better and the doctors will take care of him. Also, I want to mention that when I came to the United States, I hope I find the picture. I was very eager to bring my mother, my Polish mother, to the United States. And in 1976, I was able, after I earned some money, to bring my Polish mother to come to the United States. Here she is. That's the picture. She came twice, and she couldn't get over the life in the United States, that the stores are full of food, that people are so happy and dressed nicely. And my daughter finally had a grandma. I kept with her up to when she died in 80-something, 85 or something. So life was good for her and for me. I never, forgotten about her. I always supported her financially and psychologically. And, mostly in Poland that time, people didn't live that long, but with my help, I think she lived till 68, age 68. And I miss her so much. I have this picture every day and I look at her, I look at my parents. And the nicest thing that my mother got was the diploma from Yad Vashem. This is it, for the righteous of the world. It took me a long time to get it, to be, recognized, because you have to prove that those people who saved somebody's life, they did not get paid for it. And she never did get paid for it. I found this picture at her neighbor after she died. This is their picture when they got engaged. So I'm happy to have this picture. This is my Polish father, Wilhelm May, and this is my Polish mother, Josephine May. So if you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer. I'm so very glad that you got to listen to my story, my experience. And don't forget to watch our, our museum, because a lot of things are happening. And thank you so very much. I hope you have questions that I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'm gonna just thank you again and hope to see you when the museum opens up.
That was amazing. If you're still up for questions, we do have a couple.
Sure.
I know you mentioned that your Polish mother came to the US, but what happened to her and her family after they left you at the synagogue? Is there a little bit more to that?
Yes. After I left the synagogue, I never went back to my mother because grandfather took care of it. My father showed up, and my father didn't know that she was the one who saved my life until I told him. So she never got a penny for it. So after a while, grandfather felt guilty because the neighbors told him, you gave away your own granddaughter, so she'll have a better life, and you left the other one, here. And he was embarrassed. So my father, when he got me the first time, he took me to a photographer, and he took this picture of me, you see, not a bad picture. And the photographer liked the picture, and he put it in the window. And Grandpa was looking for us. And when he walked on the street, he saw the picture in the window. So he went to the photographer and said, do you know where those people are? And he said, well, no, but most of the Jews, they moved to Wroclaw. He was kind of smart. So he went to Wroclaw and found out there is a Jewish school. So he came to the school with this photograph and showed it to the kids. And the kids say, yeah, that's Ida. And when I looked through the window and they told me that somebody looking for me, when I say Grandpa, I said, my God, the devil is here. You know, I remember how he treated me. So I told the teachers I was scared, and they told him, you know, you're not going to go to Ida. We'll take you to the father. Let them decide it. And, you know, I went one taxi to the other. And Grandpa told my father the story that the neighbor, you know, suspect him and so on. And he wants me to come because my Polish sister, you know, wants me. And I told him if he stops drinking, then I'll come. Of course he didn't, but less, he behaved. And since then on, I did visit my Polish sister for Christmas and so on. And the first thing when I came to Wroclaw, to Częstochowa, I ran to my mother's home.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Then when I got married here in United States and I finally got enough money, I sent her a ticket. She came twice. That was unbelievable how she came. You know, we didn't see each other for 20-something years.
I'm so happy she got to come here and you guys got
Yeah.
to see each other. Why didn't your aunts take you when they recognized you in the yard before your father came to get you?
They were thinking about it. They were already thinking, but my father showed up few weeks later. Yeah, and they threatened him. They told him, if you don't take her, we take her.
After learning you were Jewish, did you start practicing Judaism?
No.
And do you still practice? Do you practice today?
No, I'm just, you know, holidays, whatever, traditional. I sent my daughter to a Hebrew school, so she'll have real Jewish education. And she has a nice Jewish husband. Like today doesn't matter anymore.
How do you feel before and after you talk about your experience?
Well, I'm tensed. You know, I'm always tense because you like going through it again. It's hard.
We've got time for one more. So this is a good one. Anna, what is your greatest hope moving forward?
My greatest hope is that the life, you know, the world will come back the way it was or better. And this terrible coronavirus, you know, will go away because every day so many people die. And honestly, I think, am I next? And I want to live for my daughter and for my grandchildren. I do the best I can, whatever they suggest, you know, wash your hands, stay away from, you know. If I saw my daughter, it was a mile away, almost from car to car.
That's all we have time for right now. I will let you say goodbye. Thank everybody.
Yes, and don't forget, I was told, don't forget to see us again on Wednesday, December 2nd, 10 o'clock. There will be second generation speaker, Carol Kane, sharing her family experience. So thanks again for listening to me and tell my story to others. It's very important.